Hello, bonjour and buongiorno. It is summer 2023 and I've just got off a train in a town called Aigues-Mortes in the Camargue region in the deep south of France. And today we're talking about pink lakes. Now, when I first saw a photo on the internet of a bright pink lake, I thought either it's got to be a fake or there's been some kind of chemical disaster. You do not see pink lakes where I come from. In Britain the lakes are one colour and that is dull grey. But pink lakes are real and they are natural, and you can find them in extremely hot, dry climates, which is why we've come here. The south of France is just about hot enough to have a lake that turns pink in the summer. But what exactly makes a lake turn pink? And is it really going to look as pink as they do in the photos? This is Aigues-Mortes, a stunning medieval fortress town just inland from the Mediterranean coast. It has everything you would want from a medieval fortress town. There are walls, towers, bridges, gates. These are some of the best preserved 14th century fortifications in the whole of France, maybe even Europe.
And of course, we're not here to see any of that.
I mean, it's nice and everything, but how about we put a pink lake in front of it? So instead, I've walked 10 minutes down the road to something called Les Salins du Midi. And just to warn you, things are about to get very pink. Les Salins du Midi is an area of salt lakes and marshland that lies between Aigues-Mortes and the Mediterranean coast. But it's also home to one of France's biggest salt production plants. You are on an active industrial site here. But every summer they open it up to tourists who want to see the unusual landscape of industrial salt production and pink lakes. But how pink is it in real life?
It's quite pink.
The thing is though, I think it could be pinker. From here, some of the pinkness is lost in the reflection of the blue sky. And for the water to look really pink, you need to be in the air looking directly down on it. So the best way to film it is with a drone. Unfortunately, they don't let you fly a drone here without special authorization, as I was politely informed 10 seconds after launching it. But luckily, there's a small mountain of salt over there, and we're going to climb up that instead. But while we're doing that, what is it that makes the water turn pink? Could it have something to do with all this salt? Well, yes. With some very rare exceptions, every pink lake on the planet is a salt lake. Salt lakes are created when water flows into a space that it can't flow out of. The water then gradually evaporates, but the salt particles stay behind, and you end up with a very salty lake. And if it reaches saturation level, then the salt starts crystallizing and you can extract it, which makes it a good place to build a saltworks. And here at Les Salins du Midi, they've taken this natural process and given it an industrial-sized helping hand. Every spring they pump seawater into the lakes and then send it round an enormous network of channels and evaporation pools. And by the time the water reaches the harvesting ponds at the end of the process, it is many times saltier than the water in the sea. In fact, it's so salty, it's saltier than the water in the Dead Sea. So you get the point, the water here is incredibly salty. But so what? Salt is white. How does that make the water pink?
Well, in the highly salty water, you get a microscopic algae which is called Dunaliella salina.
Dunaliella salina are tiny organisms that absolutely love salty water, so this place is heaven for them. But to survive in the bright sunshine here, they have to produce high levels of beta-carotene, the same stuff that creates the orange colour in carrots and the red in your lipstick, and that turns them from green to pink. In normal conditions, you wouldn't notice them, because firstly, they're microscopic, and secondly, their population is usually controlled by shrimp, which turns the shrimp pink, and then the shrimp get eaten by flamingos, which turns the flamingos pink. But as the water moves through the evaporation pools and gets gradually saltier and saltier, eventually it becomes too salty for the shrimp to live in it. At that point, the Dunaliella no longer has any predators, so they get the party started. And before long, the algae have multiplied so much, they've turned the whole lake into a microbiological pink paradise. don't Google that. Or at least, that's what we used to think. Recent studies in Australia have shown that the pink colour might not come from Dunaliella, but instead from single-celled organisms called halobacteria, or for French viewers, bonjour bacteria. But either way, the pink colour is caused by some sort of microscopic pink organisms multiplying in the water. And like I said at the beginning, pink lakes can happen naturally. You don't have to have a giant saltworks deliberately making the water saltier. Some lakes are just naturally salty enough to turn pink on their own. So, if the salt industry makes more pink lakes, what does that mean for nature? Is it a good thing or a bad thing? The massive expansion of Les Salins du Midi has inevitably resulted in the destruction of some existing habitats. But on the other hand, it's created valuable new habitat for species that need salt lakes. And in a world where salt lakes have been disappearing, you could argue that somewhere like this actually contributes to biodiversity. That might be a fun thing to debate in the comments. And here in Aigues-Mortes, they've been harvesting salt for centuries. In fact, more like millennia. Historians think it started in Neolithic times. And by the Middle Ages, the town had grown extremely rich from exporting the stuff, which might explain why they built those massive fortifications. And that is what is so special about this view. There are other pink lakes in the world, and there are other medieval fortress towns, but there can't be many places where you can see both. If you'd like to visit the pink lakes of Les Salins du Midi, the site is open from April to mid-November, although bear in mind the lakes are usually at their pinkest in June and July. Tickets are €9 if you want to do what I did and just walk around, or €13 if you want the guided tour on the little train, and there are reductions for kids and for disabled visitors. Meanwhile, Aigues-Mortes itself is a 45-minute train ride on a branch line from the city of Nîmes, where it connects to the TGV network and the rest of France. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you soon.